Hello everybody and welcome to today's video, and in today's video I'll be doing sort of a 2024 election analysis and discussing why I think that Donald Trump is actually a better candidate than Ron DeSantis. I know a lot of people on YouTube and on Twitter have been really hyping up Ron DeSantis, but I do think that Donald Trump would likely perform better than him. Also, by the time this comes up, it'll probably be 11:15 or 11:30 a.m. I was really hoping I was going to be able to get this up on the 22nd, and I technically was physically able to, but I got close to doing it. I was struggling to come up with an idea for what to do. I came up with like two things before this, but I ended up scrapping them, and now I'm doing this. So here we are. But so yeah, let's just dive it right into this. So right now, right on here, I have the 2020 election results. Now, I believe that DeSantis would perform worse than Trump because a lot of people on, like I said, a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of people on YouTube or whatever I said, have been hyping up DeSantis as the best candidate that the GOP can nominate. And a lot of this reasoning is that he has he has not more rural appeal than Trump. Obviously, he doesn't have more rural appeal than Trump. He has very good rural appeal and has almost the same rural appeal, if not the same rural appeal, that Trump does. While still, or same rural appeal, same working class appeal, yet he also has much more appeal in the suburbs. And this is something I disagree with. I've, more or less debunked this suburban claim before, discussing why he has less appeal in the suburbs, using his 2018 Florida performance, in comparing Florida to see how far it had shifted. I think that at like the best for RDS, he performed like the exact same as Trump in the suburbs. I think on paper though, he still is better than Trump in the suburbs, and I will give him that. I think that he would do better in the suburbs than Trump, but I don't think it would be by substantially more. But looking at a lot of these states, the only state that I think RDS has a clear advantage, or is clearly gonna do better than Trump in, is Arizona. I think this is one state. I think this honestly kind of holds the key for the GOP in the future. I think that if RDS were to carry Arizona, if he were to go against Kamala Harris, Arizona would be a bit of a toss up. I think Arizona and Pennsylvania would be toss ups. I would say that if I were to do a prediction, that was one of the videos I was considering, if I were to be doing a 2024 prediction between Harris and DeSantis, I would give DeSantis Arizona tilt R. I think I would probably give him Pennsylvania, but it would probably be a toss up. But I think Arizona is the one state where I think where he has more appeal than Trump, because I think that this kind of relies on his appeal in the traditionally conservative suburbs, where I think that he's very, very Trumpist, yes. But I think, especially in someone like Harris, I think that Arizona would probably narrowly split for Harris if she were to go against Trump. But against DeSantis, I think that DeSantis just isn't. I think he's like very Trumpian, yes, and he's basically as Trumpian as you can get, or almost, if not as Trumpian as you can get without being Trump. Yet, I think that's going to help him. I think that would give him the edge over Trump. But other than that, I don't really see the appeal. I think that in Florida, that's the other state because it's his home state, and he's just wildly popular there, or he was. His popularity is declining at this point, so he may have sort of shot himself in the foot in that with Florida, but I still would give him Florida. But in a lot of the Sunbelt states, like let's take a look at Georgia for example, against Joe Biden and against Kamala Harris, I think that RDS gets less rural turnout, whereas Biden and Harris retain enough black turnout, and they do well enough in the diversifying suburbs to carry it potentially by a lean margin. Against Trump, he retains all that rural turnout, and yes, black turnout's probably going to increase regardless, but it'll probably be much, much more competitive with someone like Trump. North Carolina is another great example. RDS would get less rural turnout, and he would do much worse with the working class. You could argue that against someone like Harris, who's going terribly with the working class, they might just split for RDS regardless, or that they might just not turn out. But he's going to do worse with the working class. He's going to get less rural turnout, and Harris will do well enough with the black vote. Same with Biden, honestly. Biden would actually probably do better with the working class. Harris, they would both do well enough with the black vote, do well enough in the suburbs field to probably not win it, but make it much more competitive. In the Rust Belt, this entire Rust Belt region, I think that Trump, realistically, would get very, very good rural turnout and do very, very well with the working class. He doesn't need the suburbs to win. He, honestly, for him to win, I think that his best path to victory is to get really good rural turnout, do very well with the working class, and then hope that the Democrats nominate an awful candidate again like Hillary Clinton, who just has no appeal to black voters and can't turn out black voters in all these bigger cities. And it would help if they're horrible for the working class like Hillary was, and if they're horrible for the suburbs like Hillary was. But that's one of the Democrats' biggest voting blocks, and if they just if they can hardly turn out black voters and they're still doing poorly with the white working class, that's a losing combination in the Rust Belt for the Democratic Party. So now I'm beginning to that somehow that turned into how Hillary Clinton was a bad candidate. But when you have somebody like RDS, or when you have somebody like Trump, you kind of just, if you hope that the Democratic Party can nominate somebody like that, which, I mean, like, let's be real, they're probably not. I think that Harris is the closest that they'll get, but Harris, one of her strongest points is with black voters, which is something that Clinton did not have. But if they nominate somebody who has hardly any appeal to black voters, say if they nominate Pete Buttigieg would, yes, do better with the white working class. I don't think there's quite any candidate that the Democrats would realistically nominate that's quite like Hillary, because she was just so terrible as a candidate. But I think that Trump kind of has an easier path to victory, whereas RDS, his path to victory would probably rely more on the suburbs, because he's not going to get the rural turnout that Trump's going to get, and he's not going to get the working class support, the blue collar support that you're going to see somebody like Trump getting. A lot of his plan is probably going to lie in the suburbs. He's going to probably hope that he can just do well enough in the suburbs and retain enough rural turnout and do well enough with the white working class that he's able to carry these states narrowly, which is I think that, like, just going out there campaigning and crossing your fingers ain't gonna get it done. I think that to win, you want somebody who is proven to have the appeal, proven to, yes, no, maybe not have the suburban appeal. RDS, honestly, I don't think has proven he has the suburban appeal, but do better with the rural vote. I will say this, though. I think the RDS is definitely helping his chances at the moment by what he's been doing recently. Has been shifting more and more farther more and more to the right, more and more Trumpist, which I think is going to definitely help him with rural turnout and definitely help him with the white working class. He's going to lose his suburban edge, though. I think he'll essentially just turn into another Trump, maybe a slightly more establishmentarian Trump who's going to get less rural turnout and less working class appeal. But I think that's probably the better road for him, because as I've been discussing, Trump is the better candidate. Looking at this as a whole, Trump is phenomenal for rural voters, phenomenal for the white working class. He doesn't need the suburban appeal. RDS, it's not as strong for rural voters, not as strong for the white working class, and frankly, not strong enough in the suburbs to compensate for that, unless he's against just a terrible, terrible candidate like Kamala Harris, who's going to be terrible in the right areas for him to potentially win. Like, I say that, like, Harris is a bad candidate, but he's going to probably hope that she's going to be weak enough in the areas that he wants her to be weak enough in. Weak enough with traditional conservatives and so weak with the white working class that she can generate so much anti-Harris turnout that can overcome the pro-Harris turnout from a lot of these bigger cities that she's going to be generating. And it's going to be very, very difficult for DeSantis. I think that at this point, Trump is the way to go in the GOP. I think that DeSantis is not going to get the job done. Trump will, though. I think that's just... I think that DeSantis really is a watered-down version of Trump in essentially every aspect. In not only his rhetoric, but also in his appeal, because he's very bad for suburban voters, but also very bad for rural voters and very bad for the white working class. And it's really, there's even against somebody like Harris, he'd probably be hoping that he can, once again, that she can generate enough anti-Harris white working class turnout, or I don't necessarily know if I said white working class turnout, but to be specific, generate enough anti-Harris white working class turnout to counter the black turnout that she would be generating, and to counter the gains in the suburbs. And hope, I don't think I said this, that she does poorly enough with traditional conservatives in the suburbs, where somebody like Trump, because RDS, I think, his path to victory against Harris is through Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. This relies on Harris doing poorly enough with the white working class to counteract her gains with black voters in the suburbs. Let's assume, though, that RDS does narrowly carry Arizona. Actually, no. Well, it's realistic. First off, for him to be able to do that, he would probably have to carry Pennsylvania to win. Might not have to, but it's probably his easiest path to victory. And once again, Harris, for her to be able to lose the state against DeSantis, realistically, she would be having to generate so much anti-Harris white working class turnout to counteract the suburban gains and the gains with black voters. Let's assume, though, that she does find a way to carry Arizona. Then RDS is really, really in a tough spot. I think that he manages to carry Arizona, but Michigan is windy. Pennsylvania is narrowly favoring Harris, maybe narrowly favoring RDS. So RDS is in a really tough spot right now. I think that Trump, honestly, at this point, is definitely the way to go in the GOP. He gives the GOP probably the best shot at winning the election. I would argue maybe, well, I was going to say maybe Greg Abbott, but he doesn't have the rural appeal. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like below. Stay tuned for my next video. Comment your suggestions down below. Also, please comment what you think of this analysis. Stay tuned for my next video whenever it should come out. And I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye.